Counter-Narrative News, bringing you daily news to date on Monday, the 22nd of May 2023. Going straight to Palestine, the Palestinian occupied people have suffered another massacre by hands of the white supremacist colonial regime, which is called Israel. The largest refugee camp on the occupied West Bank of Palestine, the Balata refugee camps, are one of the biggest Israeli military raids of recent years, killing three men. Fatih Jihad of 30 years old, Abdullah Yusuf Abu Hamdan of 24 years old, and Mohammed Bil Zaytoun of 32 years old. The Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, revolutionary faction of the Palestinian resistance, has claimed these young men as belonging to their movement. However, there was eyewitnesses claiming that unarmed men had approached the Israeli military after they were shot dead. This all points to the fact that the occupied Palestinians are but a colonial plaything in the hands of the settler state, fully backed by all the global superpowers of East and West. But the Palestinian people will continue to be undefeated and continue their resistance until there is a just resolution, i.e. their self-determination and liberation. Going over to the Democratic Republic of Congo, its president Tshisekedi is on a current visit to Beijing, planning to renegotiate certain trade deals and investments by the Chinese into the mineral-rich Central African state of the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's a grossly unequal relationship between what should be one of the states in the world that sees the highest living standards for all of its workers and peasants, i.e. because of the mineral-rich deposits in the DRC, but the Congo is looted through capitalist extractive looting by all the global investors in the world. And it's just a sad state of affairs that the Congolese people have had to go through this generation after generation after generation, despite many resistance periods and cultures there. Going over to Ukraine, an interesting development. So Ukraine has been invaded and occupied and colonially annexed by its superpower neighbor, 10 times the size of its own economy and military, that is Russia. However, a so-called Russian Legion faction that seems to be coming from Ukrainian territory has walked all over the Belgorod region, occupying several towns and settlements there in broad daylight. This has led to somewhat of a crisis within the increasingly brittle and shrieking right-wing and far-right community in Moscow and in the Russian leadership circles, which is expressing its frustration at the quote-unquote military operation having gone so badly for the last 6 months at least. Finally, going over to Spain, 22-year-old Brazilian Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. has lodged formal complaints against racist abuse while on Sunday he was playing an away game with Valencia. It's become such an issue that Brazilian president has intervened in defense of Vinicius Jr., denouncing the racism in Spain. For on the Vinicius Jr., he has said he's sorry to say, but amongst Brazilians, Spain is seen as a largely racist country, and this racist problem is out of control. Also, the Brazilian Ministry for Racial Affairs has also intervened in defense of Vinicius Jr. and defending the Brazilian diaspora in general in Spain itself. Finally, going over to Colombia, former leftist guerrilla himself, Gustavo Petro, has annulled the ceasefire pending negotiations with a breakaway movement of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, which rejected the FARC's disarmament. It's called the Estado Mayor Central, the EMC, which has nearly 2,500 combatants and over 3,000 members. Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia, has announced the ceasefire is over and the return to full hostilities has begun again against this revolutionary armed group of the poor peasantry, pointing to a very sad development in Colombia. If President Petro of Colombia is so dedicated to a progressive framework in support of the interests of the poor peasantry and the revolutionary guerrilla armies that support it, why go back to full conflict with these revolutionary movements? Why not express patience and try to negotiate and go back to the negotiating table and go back to the negotiating table again? This points to the very dysfunctional and arguably flawed nature of our approach of leftist presidents in Latin America disarming long-standing revolutionary armies, anti-colonial socialist revolutionary armies of the poorest workers and the peasants. That's Counter-Narrative News, wishing everyone a fantastic evening. Please continue to support us by encouraging your networks and your friends to subscribe to our YouTube channel and consider following us on Twitter at @counter_CNN. Many thanks.